All right, so this is going to be a commentary / explanation of the current Symphony of the Night world record using the new luck mode strategies. Ends up saving about a minute compared to the previous world record, which was previously a 16:26. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'll explain luck mode. I'll explain everything that's going on as the run goes on. At the very beginning, you're going to see me enter the luck mode code. This is the name code that lets Alucard start with maximum luck, 99 luck, as well as some luck boosting items. But that's not the most important part. The most important part about this run is actually, because you started with the extra luck, the game also starts you with worse stats overall, and the worse stats is actually what's going to help us save time. This is the prologue of the run. Nothing is really changed about this other than the fact that there are somewhat new strategies that allow for subtle RNG manipulation. For example, the spot in which Dracula spawns was RNG manipulated, but other than that, there's not ways to do like massive amounts of RNG manipulation. In general, like for example, the amount of damage you do to Dracula is random, and that randomness cannot be manipulated. There's essentially like two random variables. There's ones that can be manipulated and ones that can't. The ones that cannot be manipulated are usually the more important ones, like item drops, stuff like that. But small things like enemy patterns can sometimes be manipulated in certain circumstances, especially in the beginning of the game. So yeah, this is luck mode. Alucard starts with 25 health, 1 MP, 5 hearts. And we're going to see the lack of health actually come into play right here. This is known as a big toss. This is probably the fastest ground movement you have, or just fastest movement that you have in general in Alucard form. It is a intentional mechanic that the game programmed in. Anytime you take more than half of your health in a single hit, you go flying until you either hit a ceiling or hit a wall. We actually take advantage of this to have the Warg push us past the room where death normally takes away all of our powerful starting gear. So because of this, we get to keep all of our powerful starting gear. But some of you who are more astute to Symphony of the Night speedrunning might already know that that's not necessarily a problem that we had before. There were many different ways of skipping death before, using glitches known as reverse shift lines or whatever have you. There were ways to skip death before, and this version was considered slower for the longest time because you would have to play throughout the rest of the run in luck mode with worse stats, primarily worse magic, which I'll talk about more later when magic becomes more of a problem. But as it turns out, those two big tosses alone, just because they are so fast, they actually create a interesting dynamic in this early part of the run where I think in total it saves about like close to like 10 to 15 seconds of movement of just like running through that hallway. And those 10 to 15 seconds of time save is actually just enough time save to make it viable and possible to skip an entire clock cycle, which was preventing speedrunners from saving a lot of time before this route was discovered and like implemented. So coming up here is boss fight with Sagar and Gaibon. Because of our luck mode stats, our strength is a little bit worse. We have to do an extra slash at the end there, and goes pretty easily. Even though our stats are bad, we do have really great starting gear, so we're still going to be killing most average enemies in a single hit and bosses in a few slashes of the Alucard sword. So another thing that's important to note about this speedrun as a whole is we're about to be coming up on one of the most important rooms in the game. I feel like the game doesn't do a fantastic job of really emphasizing its importance, but it is the central clock room. This game has a internal clock timer that is always running so long as you are in the game playing, and that internal clock manages a few things. The most important thing that it manages for a speedrun's perspective is in this next room in the top left-hand corner, there's going to be a statue that is going to move right there. That statue moves in and out of position every other minute. During that cutscene, it's always guaranteed to move. I think that's the game trying to like hint that like, hey, the statue can move. Maybe come back here later when the statue's out of your way or whatever. But essentially, that area unlocks the hallway to the Colosseum, which has one of the more important relics in the game, the Mist Relic, because that relic will allow us to get the Bat Relic. And if you know anything about Symphony of the Night speedrunning, the Bat Relic is the most important relic in the entire game. It allows you to go really, really fast. It allows you to fly. It is essentially the go mode for this game. Once you have Bat, you can just basically skip everything and go to the end of the game. So the most important part of this run is getting up past that clock statue and getting to the form of Mist Relic, so that way we can get to the soul of Bat. But because the clock statue moves in and out of your way every other minute, there is, for the longest time, for pretty much since around 2012, 2011, the fastest way that you can get back to that clock room after gaining the ability to get enough height to get up into that clock room's area is 8 minutes. Because the statue moves every other minute, on even numbered minutes, the statue is like blocking. Sorry. On even numbered minutes, the statue is out of your way, no longer blocking the path, but on odd numbered minutes, it is blocking the way. So essentially, the perfect run was a sub 8 minute cycle. So you get to that room in under 8 minutes. And then once the 8 minute has started in game time, the clock statue will move out of your way, and then you're able to proceed with the speed run. It essentially meant that the start of every single run was constantly blocked by this global cycle. But by saving that time early on with those big tosses, we actually, if we play near perfectly and get some good luck along the way, it is possible to skip that cycle. I think on this run, I end up saving like a lot of time just from really good movement, and it ends up meaning that every aspect of this run actually matters, and the execution of it is really important. This is the Soul of Wolf. This is the relic that we're going to be using to get up into the clock area, the upper clock area, using an unintended mechanic where you can actually dive kick out of untransforming from Wolf, and the dive kick can be used to gain extra height if you dive kick off of like a candle, for example. We grabbed this garnet. This garnet is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to make this cycle, because grabbing that garnet costs about 5 seconds, but in the later part of the run, it ends up saving about 15 seconds. So you end up with a overall positive time save of about 10 seconds if you grab the garnet now. However, if you're about to miss the clock cycle, it is possible that you can skip that garnet and instead go for a different sellable later that costs about 15 seconds. So from here, this ending of the clock cycle, we actually transform into the wolf. You're going to see the wolf transformation used for movement, because the wolf itself is really good at moving horizontally whilst also being in the air, or just moving through like awkward terrain, something that Alucard can't really do very well. His backdash is really good for moving fast, but it's actually faster a lot of the time if you're going to go up and down slopes, or if you're going to be moving through the air to be in wolf transformation instead. And here, you can see on the timer, we make it in under 7 minutes, so it's still an even numbered minute, and we actually skip what would normally be an entire full minute of waiting at that clock room. That was always there for every single world record, every single speedrun for Castlevania Symphony of the Night until recently, until this luck mode route was implemented and optimized. So there would be a quick detour in this room where we would grab an onyx instead of grabbing that garnet if we needed to make the cycle. But this run was actually executed well enough that I didn't need to go out of my way to get the onyx. Instead, we had the garnet, and we're from here, it's very similar to a normal speedrun from the previous route. The only difference is because our stats are worse, we saved an entire minute on the clock cycle, but now everything after this point is a little bit harder to execute. Anytime that we need to do damage to something, we're going to usually either slash 1 or 2 extra times. Like these bosses take an extra slash each in order to die, so you have to be a little bit more precise with your slash timing. You have to make sure that you kill them quickly before they actually get a chance to counterattack. And if the Minotaur, for example, swings his axe at you, it is an instant kill because your HP is so low. There is risk of actually dying in this route, where before there wasn't really risk of dying, but thankfully there is a library card before this fight starts, and then we grab the missed relic, and then we now warp to the library. This is also pretty standard compared to the previous routes. Here we're using the wolf jump to gain extra height, use the mist to reposition ourselves, and then we dive kick off of a book. This gives us access to this area earlier than intended, which has the fairy card. The fairy card is a very important relic because it is one of the few relics that is allows you to do this next glitch coming up, which is the shop glitch. The shop glitch is essentially a way to glitch the game into giving you a bugged amount of garnets. So we're going to open this menu, which you're not normally supposed to be able to do, whilst being able to sell the garnet that we just equipped This causes a overflow, which gives us 255 garnets. We can sell as many as we need, and then we'll have enough money to buy all of the overpowered stuff in the game. For example, mana prisms, buffalo stars, and duplicator. Those are the three most important things. The duplicator gives you infinite usage of any single-use item like a potion or a throwing star. The buffalo stars are really powerful throwable weapons. They're also useful for movement because they allow you to do backdash cancels, similar to how I've been doing with the shield this entire time. And then the mana prisms are used because they refill your MP to full on a single use. From here, we're hoping for a good pattern there. It's a about a 40% chance that the flea armor there swings its axe at you and gives you another big toss through that room, which is really, really nice. That's one of the other advantages of having a lower health pool, is that big tosses are available to help you save time. That's pretty much the last big toss that is like viable for saving time movement wise, because now we have access to the Soul of Bat. This is the most powerful movement option in the game, that is known as Wing Smashing. It's a spell that requires a very specific input, but we're using the Wing Smash to set up for yet another glitch, which is allowing us to clip through the floor here in the library. This allows us to escape the library in a much faster fashion than normal. Normally we would have to use like a library card and then like Wing Smash back and forth through the rest of the library. Instead, we just fly through the bottom of the map to the end, to the exit, and then it saves about like 6 seconds, but it requires like a couple of frame perfect inputs, no big deal. Another thing that's important to note about luck mode is we started with much less magic than we would otherwise, and every time we do the Wing Smash spell, the thing that's allowing us to fly very quickly around, it costs 8 MP, 8 magic points, and we only have so much total magic points in our magic bar at the top of the screen. So every time you're seeing me do a Wing Smash, I'm losing a chunk of that MP bar, and I have to do the Wing Smash input once every second or so. So every second I'm losing about 8 MP. So I'm constantly losing MP while I'm flying quickly. So I'm going to be using the Mana Prism to refill my MP to full. But the downside of being in luck mode is because our total MP is less than it would be otherwise, we are actually limited to the type of strats that we are allowed to do, because we're constantly going to have to untransform, go back into Alucard form, pop a Mana Prism, and then transform back into Bat, where previously we would have just enough MP to go through entire sections without needing to do that. So the movement is slightly slower after the clock rush in luck mode, but during the clock rush, we save at least a minute. So it ends up meaning that this route is overall faster. I think in general, you lose about 8 seconds movement-wise, optimally, compared to what was possible with the previous route. But 8 seconds of time loss in movement versus the minute plus seconds of the minute of time save in the beginning part of the run. Obviously, this route ends up being faster overall. That glitch that we did there is a glitch known as Richter Skip. It gets us into the end of the game without needing to do any of the glasses side quest, getting the holy glasses and all that stuff. And from here, we're just going to be booking it to the very end of the game. This is any percent after all. We are not bogged down needing to kill any extra bosses or collect any extra enemies. It is a straight gauntlet of skill and execution to execute these Wing Smashes, to move through the room properly, make sure we don't take any damage from any enemies, because I'm pretty sure even with 45 health, any hit from any enemy or boss is pretty much an instant kill. So we basically have to do this damage list outside of a handful of like intentional damage boosts early on in the game. But any damage outside of the very intentional damage boosts is very, very scary and could lead to a death. Here, it's actually faster to jump through this section to gain height as opposed to just fly up as Bat. So that's why you're going to see us juggle, either transforming into Bat, transforming into Mist to reset our Wing Smash, or untransforming altogether to gain some extra height. One of the fastest ways to gain height is actually to Wing Smash upwards, because you can control the height of your Wing Smash. So in general, you want to see, like, perfect movement is just Wing Smashing as much as possible and then controlling the Wing Smash to go up and down, whilst also managing the input for the Wing Smash, which is a 3/4 circle motion on the control stick. So you have to do this 3/4 circle motion, and then after doing that motion, control your height by pressing up and down, and then manage that with a 1 second timer where you have to then do the input again. Otherwise, you get forcibly untransformed. So the major skill expression of this game is really just controlling your Wing Smashes, controlling the height for your Wing Smashes, and making sure that you do the inputs at the proper time to make sure that you don't drop out of the transformation, and especially in a scary area like at the end of the game, if I were to drop any wing smash here and just like get ejected out of bat form inside of an enemy, I'll just die. It's an instant death. So here we are at the very end of the game. I'm going to be using the heart refresh that I got at the very beginning as a reward for doing the prologue and ending with 0 hearts. So at the very beginning of the game, we got an item for the very end of the game. That heart refresh sets up a glitch known as a reverse shift line. This reverse shift line essentially is a way for the game to push Alucard into the next screen over when going through a screen transition. We use that to push Alucard out of bounds into the ceiling. The ceiling allows us to wing smash to the other side of the ceiling, which then ejects us back into the castle geometry right at the very end of the game, skipping the need for all of the extra boss relics that are normally required to get to the very end of the game to fight both Shaft and Dracula, the 2 final bosses. Here, I equip double Buffalo Stars because you get access to only throwing 3 Buffalo Stars per hand. Unfortunately, here, I did just barely not enough damage. 1 extra Buffalo Star at the end there. Lost me a little bit of time. But overall, everything else was executed well enough to snag a world record. Yeah, if you only had Buffalo Stars on one hand, you would only be able to throw 3 at a time, and then you'd have to wait for them to disappear. And every time you throw a Buffalo Star at an enemy, it like sticks inside of their hitbox and then disappears slowly. It does like a whole animation of it like disappearing. So having it on both hands allows you to just increase your DPS by like 2 times, basically. And here it's just dodging the hand swings from Dracula by moving left and right right before he swings at us and throwing as many stars as possible. And that was time. This run ended up being a 15:38. So not perfect execution compared to the previous route, which was a 16:26, but obviously there's so much time saved to be had in skipping that entire minute of waiting in the clock that this run is obviously faster. And there's still room for improvement for this route in general, but overall I'm very happy that this route exists, because before we would just be waiting an entire minute for the clock statue to move out of the way. So every single run of Symphony of the Night, the beginning part of the run didn't matter because you had to wait for the 8-minute cycle to go up anyways. So you could just kind of not have to execute perfectly, where now any time save that you have in the beginning part of the run is real time save for the ending time at the very end. But yeah, that's the new Symphony of the Night any percent route using luck mode. I think it's really cool. I'm excited that I got a chance to get a run that's pretty decent so far, and hopefully I get to showcase it. So yeah, have a good one. See you later. Bye bye.